Hi there, this is Josh Dahm, Office Administrator for the Presbytery of the Western Reserve, and this is an instructional video on how to set up a Zoom meeting using the web client. Now, a couple things. This was going to be a video on how to set up a Zoom meeting using either the Zoom web client or the software client that you download on your computer, but I have since learned in a previous take that you can't record Zoom using itself, and that is what I'm using to record these. I will go over that in a little bit more detail when we reach the end of the web client portion of the video. Another thing you may notice, in this video I am wearing headphones. In the intro video I was not. You may also notice that the sound is better in this one, so let's count that as a tip. You will get better sound quality, and it's a better practice in general when using Zoom or any video conferencing platform to use headphones that have a microphone. Excuse me, the microphone is on this side. Use headphones that have a microphone. You're going to reduce background noise. You're going to reduce the possibility of feedback. For example, when some other participant in the meeting's dog barks, and your computer speaker plays that, if it's also listening through the microphone, there might be a momentary lapse between when the software realizes that the sound has spiked and does the proper noise canceling on the microphone, and then you might get some feedback. So using headphones, if everybody uses headphones, it works really, really well, but you can do your part by using headphones that have a microphone whenever possible. Okay, so let's get started on scheduling a Zoom meeting using the web client. I'm going to share my screen here, switch over to the web browser. So now we're looking at my web browser, and in the browser bar here, I'm going to go to zoom.us. In the upper right-hand corner, after the page loads, you're going to see the words My Account. Now, this is because I'm already signed in. If I weren't signed in, it would say sign in, and then I would click that, go through the sign-in process, and it would take me to my account info. Now, this is all assuming you already have a Zoom account. If you don't already, you're going to need to sign up for one. That's pretty straightforward. You go to zoom.us/join and follow the instructions. We might do a future video covering that if people seem to be having trouble with it. But for now, I'm going to click on My Account. And then over on the left side of the screen here, under Personal and Profile, I'm going to click on Meetings. And here I'm going to click the large blue button that says Schedule a New Meeting. Now, the first thing we'll need to do is enter a topic for the meeting. We're going to call this Josh's. You can see from the auto-populate text here. This is not my first take of this video. Josh's super awesome Zoom meeting. If I wanted to, I could enter a description here. I'm going to leave it blank. We're going to schedule the meeting for today at 4 p.m. And I'm going to leave the duration at 1 hour, but you could set whatever duration you wanted here. I get off work at 5, so you know. Now, I should call attention to here. I'm signed into my individual account, which is a basic account. The basic account is free. So your Zoom basic plan has a 40-minute limit on meetings with 3 or more participants. This is something that is worth calling a little bit of attention to. Now, if I were meeting one-on-one with another person, we could meet for as long as we wanted with a basic plan. But the second a third person, the moment a third person comes into that meeting, assuming you're using a basic plan, you are on a 40-minute time limit. There are paid subscriptions that offer unlimited. In fact, all the paid subscriptions offer unlimited meeting times. So you can weigh sort of on your own or in your groups whether a free account is going to be sufficient or whether you need to invest in a paid account. There are some options via TechSoup.org, which is a website that offers software and in some cases hardware at discounted rates or for free to nonprofits. And in fact, the Presbytery of the Western Reserve Zoom account we get through TechSoup, it's something like half off. So we pay, actually, I think if I'm correct, a little bit less than half per year, the normal pro subscription. Okay, so we have an hour-long meeting starting at 4 o'clock. I'm going to leave recurring meeting unchecked. I don't need it in this case. If you were scheduling a group that met regularly and you wanted to use the same URL, the same meeting link every single time, you could check that. I'm going to leave it unchecked for a reason that I'll go over when I talk about meeting ID. Now that's the next section here. So you've got a couple of options here. You've got generate automatically or personal meeting ID. Now you may or may not know this, but if you already have a Zoom account, you have a personal meeting ID. Think of it like your phone number. That is a number that is yours. That meeting ID will always take the person using it to you. I think of this, if you've gotten an email from me, you may have seen my personal meeting ID in my email signature. I think of it as the digital equivalent of walking up to my desk and saying hello, had a conversation with me. For the purposes of scheduling a group that is meeting, I always leave it on generate automatically, and here's why. Let's say I had it use my personal meeting ID to schedule the meeting of the Committee on Document Margin Width or whatever. All right. And that meeting, let's say, takes place today at 4 p.m. Let's say today at 4:15, someone who is not a part of that meeting reads an email from me and needs a quick chat. They would see in my email signature, they would see that I have a personal meeting room, and they might click on that in order to have a quick Zoom chat with me. And lo and behold, they would pop into the Committee on Document Margin Width meeting that was underway, because it would be associated with this meeting ID, which is my personal meeting ID. So when I'm scheduling a meeting for a group, I let it generate one automatically, and it'll show us what that is after the meeting settings are complete. If this were a confidential meeting, we could require a password, and you see that it auto-generates one for you, but you can put whatever you like in there. We're going to leave that unchecked for now. Now under video, this is the default when the meeting starts, whether or not folks' video will be turned on. So let's say you had a lot of participants and mostly you just needed them to listen to you talk and watch you show them things. You could leave their video off because maybe they don't need to participate in the same way while turning yours on. But if we were scheduling a meeting for a group where there needed to be conversation and face-to-face interaction, we would probably set both to on. Now under audio, this has to do with how people's audio is being transmitted to the meeting. Most people, the vast majority of people, use computer audio. I usually, when I'm setting meetings up, I leave it set to both, and this is the reason why. Every now and then, people have difficulty with the audio settings on their own computer. I know that despite the fact that I do this for a living and spend a lot of time waiting around in these things, even I have trouble with computer audio settings from time to time. And in the event that someone didn't get the invite until the last minute, didn't have time to troubleshoot, they might need to join quickly and want to do that with very little difficulty. And in those cases, they're able to join by telephone, which basically they would call a phone number, enter a meeting ID, and they would still be speaking to you, and you could see their face with your through their web camera, but the audio would be coming in by the phone call. So I leave it for both, even though the vast majority of people use computer audio, but we're going to leave that to both now. Now, meeting options, I think of most of these as optional options, and I will call your attention to a couple of them, though. Enable join before host. Excuse me. This is one that I almost always leave checked. A lot of times I am scheduling meetings for folks, meetings that I'm not going to be a participant in. It's the, it's the life of an office administrator, right? And so I leave enable join before host on. That way I don't have to log on to start the meeting. So, for example, if the council of a church is meeting tomorrow night using the account, I'm not going to, one, there's no need for me to be in that meeting, and two, if it's after my, after the end of my workday, I'm not even going to be available to sign on and start that meeting. This allows them to join before you, or without you entirely. So it's basically, I leave that checked because that's the most useful. You can mute participants upon entry. If you had a lot of people joining, let's say you had a meeting of 30 people, for example, you might want to leave that on, or you might want to set that mute to on. They can always unmute themselves afterward, but you might want to have that on by default. And then down at the bottom here, record the meeting automatically on the local computer. Again, this has to do with the default, what happens right when the meeting starts. You can always start the recording after the meeting begins. But this has to do with, let's say you just wanted to record all the meetings forever. You could leave this checked, right? Okay, so I'm gonna click on save here. And it's gonna show us a screen which has some of our meeting information here. Now on the far right of the screen here, you see the words copy the invitation. I wanna show you what happens here because this is how you're actually gonna get the word out to your participants. So this is a lot of information. I tend to think of this as too much information. Most people don't need all this info. So let me show you what I do when I'm inviting people to a Zoom meeting. So I'm gonna go copy the meeting invitation. You see it says copied to clipboard. And I'm going to stop the share for a moment because I need to switch over to my email. Hello again. Alrighty. Sorry, having just a little bit of a technical difficulty here. Okay, there we go. Now we're looking at my email. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to paste that information that I just copied into my email, and you'll see that this is everything. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and delete my email signature here just for clarity's sake. This is everything that was in that screen that came up when we said copy the meeting invitation. All right. This is, you more or less have two options for how to join a Zoom meeting. You can join using the Zoom client, which is available on Windows, Mac, Linux, iOS, and Android. So, you can join just as easily from an iPad as you can from your Windows computer. And the way you do that is with this link, zoom.us/j/ and then this is the meeting ID that was automatically generated by Zoom when we created the meeting, okay? So that's option one. The other option for folks who maybe don't have a computer, maybe their computer isn't working, maybe they can't figure out their webcam or their audio settings are giving them a lot of trouble, they have the option of joining by phone. And basically everything south of this meeting ID here is about joining by phone. But once again, this is a lot of information, and especially for folks who aren't as tech savvy or comfortable with technology, this is probably going to be overload. So let me show you what I do. The first thing I do is I delete this one-tap info. I don't doubt that it's useful, but it's not something that I have heard is useful from the folks that I tend to invite to meetings. And then these are a lot of phone numbers. These are just local phone numbers for different areas. We're going to delete. I'm going to leave. I typically leave in New York, and I delete the others because most of the people that I'm inviting to meetings are pretty close to New York. But to make it extra clear, I go ahead and delete US and New York, and I format this so it looks a little bit more like a phone number that folks are used to seeing. Okay. Okay, I leave in the meeting ID here, and I leave in find your local number just on the off chance that somebody from far out of the area or who's maybe staying in a hotel elsewhere, whatever, that they might be out of the area might want to find a different phone number to dial in with. So now we have a lot less information, what I think of as the essential information. They can click on this link, or they can, oh, I'm sorry, I usually change the text that says dial by your location. I say join by phone, just to make it extra clear. So now we know we've got two options, join Zoom meeting or join by phone. Now, both of these will get them into the same Zoom meeting. I mentioned before that you can join a meeting using phone audio as opposed to your computer audio. This is similar. It just doesn't. There's just no webcam, so it's basically the same thing happens, but with no webcam feeding a video image. So what they'll do is they'll dial this phone number. They'll get a little voice prompt that says, "Thank you for calling Zoom. Please enter your meeting ID." They enter their meeting ID, and then they're in the meeting with you. So it's a video conference for everybody who joined the Zoom meeting using the link, and it's a conference call for everybody who joined using their phone. It's one of the many things we love about Zoom is its flexibility and its versatility. It really makes using it easy from end to end, regardless of what kind of setup you're coming into it with. Now, I mentioned that there was an earlier take of this. Let me switch back. You don't need to be looking at my blank email screen here. I mentioned that there was an earlier version of this video wherein I was trying to show how to schedule via the client that you would download onto your computer. So if you're using Windows, the Windows client, or Mac, the Mac client, or Linux, whatever your platform is. And what I learned is that the screen recording doesn't work to record Zoom. So Zoom, it can't see itself. The good news is that if you have that image up, or if you have that software up in front of you, you will see a button on your home screen that says Schedule. When you click on that, you're going to see all the same options we just went over in the web form. They're just laid out a little bit differently because it's not the web form, it's a software client. But you go through all the same stuff. You copy the invitation in a similar way, and then you can edit it or do whatever you need to do once you've got it actually in the email that you're going to send out to your attendees. So I hope that's helpful. This was the first in a series of instructional videos on how to use Zoom. In future videos, we're going to cover how to navigate the interface once the meeting has already begun, and also just some best tips, best practices and pro tips for folks using Zoom. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you again real soon. Bye-bye.